Hello everyone, and welcome to today's special presentation titled These 5 Fruits Can Be Dangerous for Seniors, ages 60, 70 and 80. I'm your host, and over the next half hour we're going to dive deep into a topic that might surprise you. Fruits are often hailed as nature's candy, packed with vitamins, minerals and fiber. They're a staple in almost every healthy diet. But here's the thing, for seniors, especially those in their 60s, 70s and 80s, some fruits can pose unexpected risks. Whether it's due to digestive changes, medication interactions, or physical limitations that come with aging, what's healthy for one person might not be safe for another. Now, before we get started, let me set the stage. As we age, our bodies go through a lot of changes. Our metabolism slows down, our digestive systems might not work as efficiently, and many of us start taking medications to manage chronic conditions like high blood pressure, diabetes, or heart disease. These factors can turn even the most innocent-looking fruit into something that requires caution. Today, I'm going to walk you through 5 specific fruits that could be dangerous for seniors, explain why they pose risks, and offer some practical tips on how to enjoy them safely, or avoid them altogether if needed. I've spent a lot of time researching this topic because I believe knowledge is power, especially when it comes to health. My goal isn't to scare you away from fruit. Far from it. Instead, I want to empower you or your loved ones to make informed choices. We'll cover everything from choking hazards to sugar spikes to interactions with common medications. So grab a cup of tea, or maybe a glass of water since we're talking about diet today, and let's get started. By the end of this, you'll have a clear understanding of which fruits to approach with caution and why. Before we dive into the list, let's talk about why this matters. Aging is a natural process, and it's beautiful in its own way. But it does come with some challenges. For example, did you know that after age 60, your stomach produces less acid, which can make it harder to break down certain foods? Or that your kidneys might not filter as efficiently, affecting how your body handles sugar or potassium? These changes are subtle, but they can make a big difference when it comes to diet. And for those in their 70s and 80s, things like weaker teeth, reduced saliva production, or even arthritis in the hands can turn eating into more of a challenge than it used to be. So with that in mind, let's jump into our first fruit. Our first fruit on the list is grapefruit. Now, grapefruit is one of those fruits that's often praised for its health benefits. It's loaded with vitamin C, it's low in calories, and some people even swear by it as a weight loss aid. But for seniors, especially those in their 60s, 70s, and 80s, grapefruit can be a bit of a double-edged sword. Why? Because of something called drug interactions. Let's break this down. Grapefruit contains compounds called furanocoumarins. Don't worry, I won't make you remember that word. But these compounds can interfere with enzymes in your liver and intestines. Specifically, they block an enzyme called CYP3A4, which is responsible for breaking down many medications. If you're taking drugs for cholesterol, like statins, such as atorvastatin or simvastatin, or medications for blood pressure, anxiety, or even some heart conditions, eating grapefruit can cause those drugs to build up in your system. That means you could end up with too much of the medication in your bloodstream, leading to side effects like muscle pain, dizziness, or even kidney damage. I remember talking to a friend of mine, a retired nurse, who told me about a patient in his 70s who loved his morning grapefruit. He'd been eating it for years without a problem, but once he started a new cholesterol medication, he began feeling weak and tired all the time. It turned out the grapefruit was amplifying the drug's effects. His doctor had to adjust his dose and told him to ditch the grapefruit entirely. Stories like that really drive home how something as simple as a fruit can throw things off balance. Now, this doesn't mean every senior needs to avoid grapefruit. If you're not on any medications, or if your doctor says it's safe, you might be fine. But here's the catch. A lot of seniors are on at least one prescription, and the older we get, the more likely that number goes up. So if you're in your 60s, 70s, or 80s, it's worth checking with your healthcare provider before you dig into that juicy pink grapefruit half. And don't forget about grapefruit juice. It's just as potent, if not more so, because you might drink a larger amount. Another thing to consider is timing. Some people think, oh, I'll just eat my grapefruit at a different time of day from my meds. But those compounds can linger in your system for up to 24 hours, or even longer in some cases, so timing tricks won't always work. My advice, play it safe. There are plenty of other citrus fruits out there, like oranges or tangerines, that give you that vitamin C boost without the risk. We'll talk more about alternatives later, but for now, grapefruit is our #1 fruit to watch out for. Next up, we have cherries. Oh, cherries, those sweet, tart little gems that are so hard to resist, especially when they're in season. They're packed with antioxidants, they're great for inflammation, and some studies even suggest they can help with sleep thanks to their melatonin content. So what's the problem? Well, for seniors, cherries can pose two main risks: sugar content and choking hazards. Let's start with the sugar. Cherries are naturally sweet, which is part of their appeal, but that sweetness comes from natural sugars, about 13 grams per cup. Now, for someone in their 60s who's still active and managing their blood sugar well, that might not be a big deal. But as we move into our 70s and 80s, many people develop insulin resistance or type 2 diabetes. Even if you don't have diabetes, your body's ability to process sugar can slow down with age. Eating a big bowl of cherries could send your blood sugar spiking, leaving you feeling shaky or tired afterward. I've seen this firsthand with my uncle, who's 78. He loves cherries and used to eat them by the handful, but last summer he noticed he'd feel woozy after his cherry snack. His doctor checked his blood sugar, and sure enough, it was spiking higher than it should. She told him to cut back to just a small handful and pair it with some nuts or cheese to slow down the sugar absorption. It's a simple fix, but it's something he never had to think about in his younger years. The second issue is the pits. Cherry pits are small, hard and slippery, and for seniors with weaker teeth or swallowing difficulties, something called dysphagia, which gets more common in your 70s and 80s, they can be a choking risk. You might think, well, I'll just spit out the pits. But if your reflexes aren't as sharp, or if you're eating quickly, it's easier than you'd expect to accidentally swallow one. And trust me, a trip to the ER over a cherry pit is not how anyone wants to spend their day. So what's the takeaway? If you love cherries, enjoy them in moderation. Maybe a few as a treat, rather than a big serving. And if swallowing is a concern, consider pitted cherries or even cherry juice, though watch the sugar in that too. Cherries are delicious, but for seniors, a little caution goes a long way. Number 3 on our list is the humble banana. Bananas are a go-to snack for so many people, easy to peel, portable and full of potassium. Potassium is great for your heart and muscles, right? Well, yes. But here's where it gets tricky for seniors. Too much potassium can be dangerous if your kidneys aren't working at full capacity. As we age, our kidneys naturally lose some of their filtering power. By the time you're in your 70s or 80s, they might not clear potassium from your blood as efficiently as they once did. A medium banana has about 400 to 450 milligrams of potassium, which doesn't sound like much, but if you're eating bananas every day, or pairing them with other potassium-rich foods like oranges or spinach, it can add up. Too much potassium in your blood, a condition called hyperkalemia, can cause irregular heartbeats, muscle weakness, or even more serious complications. I read about a case where a woman in her 80s ended up in the hospital because she was eating 2 bananas a day, plus taking a potassium-sparing diuretic for her blood pressure. Her doctor didn't realize how much potassium she was getting from her diet until her levels got dangerously high. It's a reminder that even healthy foods can tip the scales if you're not careful. Now, this doesn't mean bananas are off limits. If your kidney function is good, and your doctor can check that with a simple blood test, a banana here and there is fine. But if you're on medications like ACE inhibitors or have kidney issues, you might need to limit them. And here's another tip. Bananas are soft and mushy, which is great for seniors with dental problems, but they can also be a slipping hazard if dropped on the floor. My neighbor, who's 72, slipped on a banana peel in her kitchen last year. Not a joke, a real story. So handle with care in more ways than one. Our 4th fruit is grapes. Grapes are another fan favorite, sweet, juicy, and perfect for snacking. But for seniors, they come with 2 big red flags, choking and sugar, much like cherries, but with their own twist. First, let's talk about choking. Grapes are small, round, and smooth, basically the perfect shape to get lodged in your windpipe. For seniors in their 70s and 80s, swallowing difficulties become more common, and grapes are one of the top choking hazards. I've heard experts say you should always cut grapes in half for young kids, but honestly, the same logic applies to older adults with weaker swallowing reflexes. It only takes one moment of distraction for a grape to go down the wrong way. And that's a risk not worth taking. Then there's the sugar issue again. A cup of grapes has about 23 grams of sugar, almost double what you get from cherries. That's a lot for a senior whose body might not handle sugar spikes as well anymore. My friend's dad, who's 68 and pre-diabetic, used to snack on grapes while watching TV. He'd finish a whole bunch without realizing it, and his blood sugar readings were all over the place. His nutritionist told him to switch to berries, which have less sugar and more fiber. If you're set on grapes, try cutting them up and eating just a small portion. Seedless ones might be easier on the teeth too, but honestly, with so many safer options out there, grapes might not be worth the gamble for some seniors. Finally, we have pineapple. Pineapple is tropical, refreshing, and full of vitamin C and bromelain, an enzyme that's good for digestion. But for seniors, it's a fruit that can bite back, literally. The biggest issue here is its texture and acidity. Pineapple is tough and fibrous, even when ripe. For someone in their 60s with strong teeth, that might not be a problem. But by your 70s or 80s, if you've got dentures, missing teeth, or sensitive gums, chewing pineapple can be painful or just plain difficult. And if you don't chew it well, those chunks can be hard to swallow or digest, leading to stomach upset. Then there's the acidity. Pineapple is pretty acidic, and as we age, our stomachs produce less acid to break down food. That might sound like acidity would help, but it can actually irritate the stomach lining or worsen conditions like acid reflux or ulcers, which are more common in older adults. My aunt, who's 75, loves pineapple, but says it gives her heartburn every time, unless she eats just a tiny piece. Plus, pineapple has natural sugars, about 16 grams per cup, so it's another one to watch if you're managing diabetes or blood sugar. Canned pineapple might be softer, but it's often packed in syrup, which adds even more sugar. Fresh is best, but only in small doses and chewed thoroughly. So there you have it, our 5 fruits: grapefruit, cherries, bananas, grapes, and pineapple. Each one has its benefits, but for seniors in their 60s, 70s, and 80s, they come with risks worth knowing about. Grapefruit can mess with your meds. Cherries and grapes can spike sugar or choke you. Bananas can overload potassium, and pineapple can be tough on your mouth and stomach. What's the big takeaway? Talk to your doctor or a nutritionist about your specific situation, your medications, your health conditions, your physical abilities. And don't be afraid to swap these out for safer options, like apples, berries, or melons, which are gentler on aging bodies. Thanks for sticking with me for this deep dive. I hope you feel more confident about navigating your diet as you or your loved ones age. Until next time, stay safe and take care.